skip over the 8 board committees. You will hear a lot more about these as you continue on through the board. And even at today's board meeting, you'll hear reports from the individual board committees as to what projects they're working on and what their priorities are. But we just wanted to do a brief overview for you. And so the Advocacy Committee is the first one you see in that upper left. That is a committee that's focused on educating the board about issues affecting Rails libraries and requiring those advocacy efforts. The Consortia Committee, which recommends ways to improve and increase consortial services, and of course involves involvement from all the major consortia that are in the Rails service area. The EDI Committee, which focuses on equity, diversity, and inclusion. This is the newest board committee, and it just got started last year. We'll be talking a little bit later in this presentation about the equity, diversity, and inclusion efforts of Rails, but it was really identified as being a board priority, and so this was one of the things that started that. And then the Executive Committee, which consists of the board president, the vice president, the secretary, the treasurer, and one additional board member. Our next four include the Nominee Committee, which of course recruits and confirms our candidates for the Rails board. We'll hear more about that as that gets a little bit closer. And then the Policy Committee, which makes recommendations to the Rails board on all Rails policies. The Resource Sharing Committee, which is focused on investigating and recommending ways to improve and increase resource sharing, and the Universal Service Committee, which works on those issues. We'll be talking about the unserved later, but there are approximately 1 million unserved residents in Illinois, so they're very focused on those issues. Some of these committees are primarily board focused, and some of them involve other Rails members who are also working together on those issues, including that Universal Service Committee, the EDI Committee, and the Resource Sharing Committee are typically focused on that, along with the Consortia Committee, which has a lot of consortium members. So you'll hear a lot more about that later today.
And another word about the Universal Service Committee, of which Sue is the chair, that is also extending service to the unserved, is also specifically mentioned as a system responsibility in the System Act. They don't give you a lot of guidance on how to go about doing that, but it is specifically mentioned. So we talked, I mentioned before, the ambassador role. So we provide a variety of materials to help you with this. Every month, in our monthly reports, there's information about the service of the month with some talking points. Just sort of general topics, topics that you might want to bring up that are particularly current, that you might want to bring up with your local boards, with your colleagues in your libraries, etc. So we do a lot of work on board engagement. We did a survey this past year, which the results of which are in the folder, which we'll be talking about more later after the PowerPoint. But we're constantly trying to find ways to improve our engagement with you all. We really appreciate your commitment, the time that you take, and your support for Rails, and we want to be sure that we help you in every way that we can. Networking opportunities. This has been very, very helpful over the years. This past year, obviously, we didn't do much of that in person for sure. We used to, and hopefully will again, travel around the system, having meetings at various sites, and then having networking meetings before with lunch, etc. I'm sure a lot of you have attended some of those in the past. We hope to get back to that, because it's really great to get out and see the libraries, see the other parts of Rails. So hopefully, we can do that soon.
And then Rails staff is, of course, one of the biggest and most important parts of the resource sharing efforts that we have. This gives you a breakdown of the staff. So Rails has 92 employees, which includes 79 full-time employees and then 13 part-time. That breakdown also shares what the difference is in terms of how the staff is distributed. So there are 35 administrative staff, which includes most of the staff that you're seeing here today. 45 delivery staff who are spread out amongst our 4 different delivery hubs that you'll hear a little bit about in a moment. and then our 12 RSA staff. And so that gives you kind of an indication as to how the real staff is divided.
Next. Yes, anytime. I should have said that before. Yes.
Could you explain what is RSA?
Yes. RSA is like Prairie Cat. It's called it means Resource Sharing Alliance. And it's, we'll get the map out at some point. We can show you, over the course of the development of systems, many of the original systems developed thank you, Mary, developed an LSAP, an integrated library shared catalog system. So just as Prairie Cat was, well, that's a merger of many smaller systems. RSA came out of the Peoria, the Alliance library system, which I know some of you are very aware of.
Okay, so Prairie Cat went independent.
Yes.
So that's why they're not listed there.
That's correct. They are not, Prairie Cat staff are not our staff anymore. They used to be. So did the Swan staff used to be our staff. They used to cohabit this building with us. We'll look at the map at the break, but there's been a long evolving history of us and the LSAPs, and you're going to hear about that very soon from Ann Slaughter. But first we're going to look at our buildings. So this is where you are now. This has always been a library system. When Rails was formed, the decision was made to make this the administrative headquarters based on population, location, etc. We have other buildings as well. Next. So this is Bolingbrook. This is a rental property down off of Weber Road on 55. It has some Prairie Cat staff there. It's mostly a delivery area. It's a big delivery hub for us. And then we have Coal Valley, which of course, Beth, you're very familiar with. That's out in, right near Moline. Smaller building. We own this building. We own Coal Valley. We rent Bolingbrook. We own Burr Ridge. East Peoria, which some of us have never seen. I think maybe Tom Stagg is the only person here except for Mark, who has actually seen it because they just moved in. We used to own the previous East Peoria, built the big building, but then we sold it, rented part of it out, and then kind of got booted out. And now we have this lovely new building, and hopefully we will be there, meeting there. And then we have Rockford, another rental property, solely a delivery center. Okay, so funding. We get an annual, as I said, an annual grant, area and per capita grant that is funded at a certain dollar amount per, area per capita. And it comes through the Illinois State Library. We also get federal funds, and this is all administered by the Illinois State Library. There is no membership fee to belong to Rails because the taxpayers, pay for the grant that comes to Rails ultimately, and obviously the federal funding is also based on taxes. So every spring, June 1st, generally, we are required to submit a grant application that the board reviews and approves in May. We work on that. It's a multi-page, for a lot of you have seen this before, multi-page with many appendices, etc. That has to include an operational plan for the coming year, which is everything is based on the Rails strategic plan, which obviously closely aligns with the Illinois State Library's requirements and the Illinois System Act. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jim. He's going to talk about the financial setup.
Okay, well, just a brief overview of our finances and budgeting process. Rails technically is an intergovernmental entity and is created by statute, as Deidre noted earlier. We have approximately 27 million in net assets. Net assets are your total assets less your total liabilities. We have very few liabilities. We have no debt. Our pension is over 100% funded, so we are in very good financial shape. We have about 12 million in revenues. 10 million of which is from the area per capita grant every year. So that's our major source of funding. Which is what I just said. Myself. Part of our area per capita grant is funded by the federal LSTA funds. That's about 20% of the grant. That also necessitates our having what's called a federal single audit every year, which is part of our audit process. Our revenue categories, as we said, the area per capita grant is the major. Last year we had 3 other grants that are recorded in our special revenue fund. We had the L2, the census, and the Eread grant. For fiscal year 22, we currently have no grants that'll be in this fund, but we do get special grants from time to time. Reimbursements is our group purchase program that Layla heads, and that's over, it's about $1.2 million or $1.3 million every year. And investment income, unfortunately, varies quite a bit. It can be, this last year was not very much. It's been as high as $300,000 over a year, depending on the interest rates. And as with most governmental entities, our personnel costs are the major expenditure category. It's about 46%. And contractual services, a major one is our outsourcing, partial outsourcing of deliveries, another 25%. But we have a number of other contractual services. As Deidre mentioned, we prepare an annual budget as part of the area per capita grant application, which is due June 1st. We start this process with a draft plan and presented to the board in April. We present the numbers and we included the budget and a detailed narrative in May. And we try to develop our budget from a clean slate every year from the ground up. It's not just last year's budget and increase it by a couple percent and that's what you have. It's very, very detail oriented, particularly on contractual services and personnel. Every personnel item is budgeted by position. And
Thank you, Jim.
Strategic plan.
So what you've heard so far is kind of the foundational information. Now we're going to talk more about our services and where it's all based on the strategic plan, which was developed back in 2018. We got a lot of input from members. And we are, about ready to embark on a new one, which is you met Cindy, and at the meeting this afternoon we'll be hearing from Cindy and her colleague Stephanie about the strategic planning process. But for the one that we have in place, go ahead to the next one. So the first goal, because resource sharing is so important, our first goal is all about resource sharing. which is to, expand it as possible, optimize the use of tax dollars, and help libraries share to the fullest extent possible, because that's the best use of tax dollars, and makes us all stronger together. So a big part of resource sharing are the LSAPs. So I'm going to turn it over to Anne for that.
All right, so what is an LSAP? It's a nonsensical acronym, stands for Local Library System Automation Program. It's a term used in Illinois, and it's an administrative code. We are kind of stuck with it, but in more common library terms, it's a consortium, which is the singular, consortia is plural. And in other states, it's commonly called a network. But essentially, it's a group of libraries that shares catalog software. And when online catalogs first became available, this was obviously a huge innovation in library service. And so there was a large effort to convert libraries from card catalogs. And so at that time, systems were urged to start up those catalogs, although some of them in Illinois were also formed independently. There was a long history of splits and mergers, new consortia. When Rails formed, there were 11 of them in our service area. Only 4 of them were LSAPs, which means that they were directly supported by systems. Now we have 6 shared catalogs in our service, contained within our service area. All of them are LSAPs, and that's thanks to an expanded definition of LSAPs that was passed by the Rails board in 2016. So the benefits of LSAP membership to their member libraries is primarily the shared ILS software. These platforms are often extremely expensive and they're labor intensive to manage. So the libraries realize a lot of economy of scale there with the shared management, and also gives them more powerful, gives them strong negotiating and buying power with the vendors, because it's a large group banded together. And of course, they're sharing their collections. So all of the member libraries in a consortium share most of their materials, and it makes interlibrary loan and borrowing pretty seamless for their patrons. In terms of the services that are offered by the LSAPs to their members, they vary a lot. Our consortia vary widely in size, from 6 libraries to 150 libraries, and with very different staffing models across that spectrum. So some of their service offerings are more bare bones, and others offer more services like centralized cataloging, more training, and extensive consulting for their members. So we have our 6 shared catalog consortia. Prairie Cat and RSA, who we were talking about earlier, are 2 of them. The other ones are listed there. About 38% of Rails libraries belong to a catalog consortium. The rest of those libraries are standalone, which means that they either maintain their own catalog software, or for a small percentage of them, they're not automated and do not currently have a library catalog at all. So most of that 38% of Rails libraries are in one of our 6 LSAPs, and about 70 of them are CARLI members, the academic consortium, and they have an additional shared catalog called Eyeshare, and their members are statewide. So they are not contained within the service area. They also have members in Heartland. So all of these consortia, like I said, vary in size and provide a range of services. They do primarily serve public libraries, and they also include academic, school, and special libraries, and that mix kind of depends on the individual consortium. So our support for consortia includes 2 grant programs. One of them is called the LSAP Support Grant, and that provides operational support to the LSAPs via a mix of financial support and some in-kind services. That makes up about $2.25 million, which is approximately 20% of the Rails budget. And that support is allocated using a formula that's calculated as a part of our annual grant-making process. Currently, the fiscal 23 application is in their hands and due back to me on September 15th, and we'll determine their support levels by late October, so you'll be hearing a lot more about it. Some of these groups have always received system support and are operationally dependent on it, and some have always been financially independent, maybe even new to receiving Rails support, and see it as a bonus. So you will also hear more about this, that the Consortium Committee has just approved a charge for an LSAP sustainability working group that's charged with making recommendations for new models for rail support that are focused on ensuring the financial sustainability of these organizations. We also have a catalog membership grant, which goes directly to libraries to help expand LSAP membership by covering many of the one-time costs that are associated with joining a consortium. That includes vendor migration services and sometimes necessary technology equipment. Since fiscal 15, this grant program has made 67 awards with a total of $1.7 million. And that's been 61 individual libraries and then 3 group migrations, the kind of mergers that I alluded to. We also provide cataloging services, and that's to consortium members as well as standalone libraries. That includes catalog training, as well as a specialized cataloging service that we are just moving into a pilot for. That's going to be focused on non-Western world language original cataloging.
And how do these LSAPs that don't receive money from Rails, is it all their system, all their member libraries that pay, and that's the financial basis?
So each of the 6 LSAPs receives Rails support, and they also charge fees to their members. So their revenue is from, at least those 2 sources.
Okay.
And the Rails service of the month for September is LSAP, so I'm going to go into more detail then. It's always like the longest section of orientation. So we also have Find More Illinois, which is a software platform that facilitates interlibrary loans by connecting multiple library catalogs together, which can be a consortial catalog or a standalone catalog that allows patron-initiated requests via the web and that provides a staff interface for managing those requests. It's an additional resource for interlibrary loan. It can be an alternative to OCLC for some libraries, and is an expansion of resource sharing in Rails. It doesn't replace a consortium, though. We find that membership is most beneficial to standalone libraries and members of small consortia where their shared collection isn't quite as large. We are still in the early days, especially since that group was hit pretty hard by the pandemic, as I'm sure you can understand. We are currently working on an incentive program with our vendor to work on growing that membership. We currently have 34 libraries.
And I have a quick question. Because I know Eyeshare isn't supported in this group of LSAPs, but do they just reimburse Rails for expenses for delivery? Is that how the arrangement works with Eyeshare, or?
Yeah, and I'm not the expert to speak to that. That's the ILDS contract.
Kind of unsure what kind of support Rails supports. How does Rails support financially Eyeshare in any way, if at all? Or?
We don't,
Okay,
except for delivery.
but do we provide it? Do we get reimbursed by Eyeshare for the
For
delivery
delivery?
costs? Yeah, or is it just?
Delivery,
Yes.
right, it's not, we're not reimbursed exactly.
Okay.
The systems get money from the state library directly to
Right.
provide delivery statewide, including, specifically to Carly libraries.
Carly receives funding directly that they.
We get the funding and we do the delivery.
Okay.
Does that make
You
sense?
just do it on their behalf.
Yes.
Without any
Right,
transactional.
exactly. It's a service that the state library provides to Carly/academic libraries via the library systems.
Okay.
They used to have a contract with Lanter. I don't know if you were involved in it at that point, but Lanter was a courier service, and the state library and Carly contracted with Lanter to provide the service. And then about 4 years or so ago, 3 years ago, that went out to bid, and the systems won the bid, and so now we're doing it.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's incorporated into the rest of our delivery, so.
Right.
Because, yeah. But
I
it's
was-
funded separately. Yeah, it's Yeah, maybe we'll just pause a little bit here because we're getting into these complicated things.
Sorry. I've been on my mind
no.
for a long time, actually.
No,
The
these
moment
are,
to ask,
you know,
right?
people always have lots of questions about LSAPs and delivery. There's a lot of confusion. Do the LSAPs do delivery? No. You know, Rails does delivery, but obviously a lot of, you know, most of the delivery is because of the work of the LSAPs and the consortia. Does everybody understand what an LSAP is? So far, anyway. And you know, the question you asked, Beth, it's a really good question about, you know, the different, like, you know, how are some of the LSAPs more, you know, well off financially or more stable than others? And it's really evolved over time, and you know, some of it has to do with the makeup of the membership as well. You know, clearly, you know, Prairie Cat and particularly RSA, a lot of school libraries, a lot of very, very small public libraries. And, you know, their ability to pay is not as great as libraries around here with, you know, larger populations, more affluent, you know, customer base, whatever. So you're in Prairie Cat?
Yes.
Yep.
And we're very small.
Yeah. But you're not as small as some of,
No.
right, I mean,
no,
there's
there are
such
lot
a
smaller
range,
ones than us.
right. So, you know, the LSAPs do tremendous work. They're, you know, powerhouses of resource sharing, but it's still only 38% of our membership. So there's a lot of libraries that don't belong to an LSAP either because they choose not to, they can't afford it. So we tried, I mean, obviously we have to support them too, you know, and, you know, but we also at the same time, and as you know, Anne mentioned the working group that's been established to look at LSAP sustainability, we worry that when the Rails budget, if the Rails budget gets cut, or Heartland as well, what happens, you know, if we can't support RSA anymore, specifically because we support them to, you know, over $1 million a year. What happens? What happens to those libraries? That's a big concern for us. So anyway, lots more about that down the road.
Could I just ask,
Yes, of course.
the 38% are served by the LSAPs, which provide a lot of service. I'm a Prairie Cat.
Yep,
member.
yep.
So if I weren't, what kind of service would I be getting from Rails that would be like tangible, that I could see? I get delivery, right?
Yep,
We're eligible for it.
yep. Training,
The training and
Yep.
the other networking opportunities.
Yep. Find More Illinois.
Okay.
Yep.
So all these other services that are provided to LSAPs are also available to the non-LSAP.
Yes.
members. And there's some incentive for them to join an LSAP with the grants that you have.
It certainly has resulted in a lot of growth in membership, which is great. It's, you know, better for patrons. It saves money for the libraries.
I just come up from my own.
I know.
You know.
Yeah, sure.
My own perspective.
Well, you're a trustee at a member library as well as a librarian at a member library, right? So you've also got those two hats. Yeah.
But then I have, you know, my children at a school that isn't served.
Yep.
You know. There are just a lot of things that I find hard to understand because there's such a vast difference between being an LSAP.
Yes.
And
Yes. Well, Illinois is a very decentralized state, to put it mildly. So local control, local decision. Sometimes those decisions are perhaps not the best decisions, you know. But. Any other questions? Okay, I think you're up, Layla.
So Eread Illinois Access 360 is our e-content program that's administered by Rails for Illinois libraries. The collection includes over 56,000 ebooks and e-audiobooks for all ages. And the focus of our program is on popular titles to help our libraries maintain those lower hold ratios. We have hundreds of both school and public libraries that participate in this program, and this was a program that during the pandemic really filled a need. We had over 70 libraries join during the pandemic time, the majority of them K through 12. Next. Wheelboard Library is another branch of our e-resource offerings. This platform is subsidized by Rails. It's geolocated, which means that anyone in the state can access the material. These materials are all simultaneous use with no limits, so they are always available. Next. Inky.org is a suite of resources, actually. It's available to everyone in Illinois at no charge. And this one supports local authors with online creation and publishing tools. It allows readers to access locally produced content. Inky.org resources also subsidized by Rails, and they are available to everyone at no charge. I want to mention too that we have an e-content specialist at Rails. Her name is Anna Thiem, and she handles selection, training, and services to our libraries for the resources I just mentioned, Eread Illinois, the Wheelboard Library, and Inky.org. Next. Explore More Illinois. We're going to switch gears a little bit. This is our statewide Cultural Pass program. It was launched on April 1st of 2019, and we have over 370 public libraries that are currently participating. Unfortunately, this program had to pause for a year due to COVID. And we started back up on April 1st, 2021, as restrictions were lifted. So Jessica Barnes, our special projects librarian, administers this program, and her efforts now are really focused on recruiting attractions across the state as destinations reopen.
Good morning. I'll briefly talk about delivery. 8.3 million items is what we processed and delivered. We are a hybrid system. We actually have a in-house delivery and then outsourced delivery. We outsource 135 of our locations to Continental Transport Solutions, who's located in Elmhurst, Illinois. Majority of their services are actually performed overnight or after-hours service. In addition to physical delivery, we also utilize the United States Postal Service for about 500 libraries that are primarily either in remote areas or their volume is extremely low, or it's just more advantageous to just drop it in the mail. Several years ago, as Deirdre mentioned earlier, we did receive a contract from Curly, a consortium of academic research libraries in Illinois, to service their 110 locations through the northern part of the state. Our sister system, the Illinois Heartland Library system, also was awarded a contract, and they service the southern part of the state. Naturally, during the pandemic, we actually had to shut down delivery for 3 months as we, actually had to figure out exactly, the best approach to resume delivery safely. Okay, LASA. LASA is a great organization. LASA stands for the Laboratory of Applied Spatial Analysis. It's a group out of the Southern Illinois University in Edwardsville. We partnered with them to review our operation to ensure it's as efficient as possible. We've implemented a lot of their recommendations over the years. We have a great partnership with them. One of the things that LASA was extremely instrumental in was looking at our service hubs and making sure that they were actually in the right location for our members. So we have a great relationship with LASA. I think lastly, I think for us to continue to be a premier library system and for us to remain relevant, I think we really must investigate the use of automation, such as an AMH. An AMH is going to give us greater output, accuracy, and it would be a major time saver for the libraries. So, thank you. Can I answer any questions?
Can I just say something? You guys do an amazing job. We thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, deals and discounts. This program is in place to offer advantageous pricing for our Rails member libraries. We strive for transparency, consistency in our pricing for relevant quality resources. Members saved over $1 million last year and the prior year on resources ranging from database packages to library resources for marketing and data analysis to library supply catalogs. And these deals can be viewed on the Rails website and at that web address on the slide. Next.
Over to you, Dan.
That's me, Dan. Sorry about that. Hello. Hello, everyone. Yeah, thank you. So we've really chosen in the last few years to approach member engagement and networking from kind of an online standpoint. We find that it's really nice to be able to reach, especially libraries that can't travel very often. So we will frequently do things like hold online roundtables, which will give libraries the opportunity to participate from all over. We host over 50 email addresses, email lists, and those are topic and specific to library responsibilities. We also have some area and regional lists. And then we also work with around 80 to 90 networking groups. It changes frequently. We give them the opportunity to do networking or use Zoom licenses, and also to host themselves on our website and have a spot where they can put their events anytime too.
So when we did the current strategic plan, one of the overwhelming requests that we got from libraries was to help them tell their story, to explain the value of libraries to funders, to legislators, to users. And so we took that very much to heart, and we started, we've done a number of things, but the main thing has been the My Library Is campaign, and Mary's going to talk about that.
Yes, we started the My Library Is campaign in 2019, as Deirdre said, to help all types and sizes of libraries to tell their story, promote their value to different stakeholders. You'll see on the screen just a few of the features of the campaign. There's a website. It's very interactive. There's a sharing showcase where libraries can share things that they've done to help tell their stories. One of the great things we did, and that's a picture of Nick Offerman. Those of you who know Nick Offerman, we got him through his sister. His sister actually is one of our member library directors. So she had an
in Prairie Cat.
So she obviously had an in with Nick. So she got him in this video. This was in response to, all types of libraries have trouble with people thinking that they're no longer needed because of the internet and Google. So this is a great video. If you haven't seen it, you'll see it during the course of the year, but it's also on the My Library Is website. We have a lot of continuing education. There are talking points that we worked with a consultant to develop for all different types of libraries, and any staff member at a library can use this. This was again in response to requests. People are anxious to promote the library, but they don't know quite how to do it. So that's to value those talking points. Finally, we have grants. My Library is grants, where we help fund projects of libraries that want to tell their story, but they need a little funding to support that. And most recently, we have targeted those at school libraries because, as you probably know, school libraries are probably in the most desperate need of telling their story for survival. So please do check out that website. There's a lot more great things on there.
Speaking of school libraries.
And as you saw in our breakdown earlier, 44% of Rails members are actually school libraries. And so for the last couple of years, we've worked really hard to really shore up a partnership with IL that has now also included our sister system, IHLS, and also includes ILA. And actually, at our last couple of meetings, we've also included the Illinois State Library in some of the collaboration we do. So currently, we hold a monthly meeting with stakeholders from each of those groups to really discuss school libraries and what's going on in school libraries and see how we can help each other. It's resulted in a couple of shared programs in terms of sharing some of our e-resources. We have done a lot of programs. Actually, very recently, the Reader's Choice Awards, which are a very popular piece that's hosted by IL, did a whole series of ILA new networks through ILA that were promoted by both systems. And it's really resulted in a lot of really great collaboration. Of course, one of the biggest things that we're talking about right now is school data. And that's because it's very difficult in Illinois to get good, accurate school data about how many school libraries and how many school librarians, what people are certified to do in each location. And so we are all working together to come up with a plan to try to get a better series of data and series of information that we can all work off of. But board members can help by promoting the value of school libraries. And school libraries really need our help and advocacy now more than ever. They were already really struggling to make sure that school librarians are valued within their administrations and school communities. For the incredible work that they do. But through the pandemic, those challenges have become even more difficult as school librarians have been pulled in many different directions to help with their schools. And so we will continue to share with you the information that's here, but this is one really important venue that we have for continuing to support our school libraries.
So this goal is really mostly about consulting and continuing education. And we know from listening to our members that the training that we provide is the number one. Well, maybe delivery is number one, but CE and consulting are right behind. Sorry, you guys, into arm wrestle, I guess. But anyway, there was a time when the state library was considering whether maybe systems didn't need to do training, and they heard loud and clear that that is not the case. So Joe's going to tell you a little bit about that.
Thank you, Deirdre. Yes, I'm Joe Philippek, Director of Consulting Continuing Education here at Rails. So as Dee alluded to it, as we celebrate 10 years, it's worth mentioning those first 2-3 years we did not have continuing education and consulting as a core service. So it's a credit to our membership and Rails leadership really to make that happen and to allow me to have a job here, which is just great as well. So this department has grown from a department of 1 to 3 over the last 7 years. Much of our work that the team does is to seek out and contract with different individuals and organizations to deliver CE to our members on a variety of topics, which is, I think, a combination of the sort of core learning topics that we think of, whether it's marketing, customer service, reference, readers advisory, HR and legal, et cetera. But then, of course, important for us to be responsive to what those needs are in the moment. Pandemic being a great example of what a need is in that moment. But even things like the minimum wage increase, things that libraries have to respond to and sometimes don't have a lot of time to respond to. So we really sort of take pride in our ability to be responsive in that regard. As you see, we offered 40 events in fiscal year 2021. Generally, that number is a bit higher because this is reflecting just kind of the online things we do, but it's important for us to also get out and do workshops in person and to do events not only at our other facilities, but also at our member libraries. So when we do workshops in person, we often might go to 3 or 4 different locations throughout Rails to offer those workshops so different audiences are able to do it, and so it's more convenient for them. In terms of our online offerings, it's important any time and day you pick is bad for 2/3 of our members. We know that, so to record and make things available through our archives is important, and we have over 200 different trainings that are recorded available there. As you see, we have grants that have been available to our members for the last several years. This year, most recently, we focused on equity, diversity, inclusion as a training grant opportunity, and we had 7 different libraries and consortia apply and receive grants to support the EDI training they wanted to do. And of course, because it was funded by Rails, those will be open to all Rails members, but it's just something that allows libraries to kind of take an idea of theirs and we help fund it to make it happen. Of course, for all of you as board members, we encourage you to attend Rails CE events. It's a great way to know what our members are thinking about and their challenges, and hopefully good learning for you. I know Tom helps with our CE statistics by attending a lot, so I encourage all of you to do the same. Next, please. Leadership development is certainly an area that is important to us as well, and we work in collaboration with partner organizations to help that. 2 examples are Directors University, which is why I was late today and probably leaving early because it's happening right now online. This is usually a week-long intensive training for new public library directors from across the state. Obviously, we've had to pivot to an online model over the last couple of years, so this has been will go on throughout the whole summer. Usually about 50 or 60 public library directors each year that are new go through Directors University, and it's been a great collaboration with Illinois Heartland, the State Library, and ILA. Elevate is another example of that. That's multi-type, so we have participation from all 4 types of libraries. This is a broader leadership initiative that we've been offering for several years that focuses on different aspects of leadership. We've worked with Dr. Adam Goodman from the Center for Leadership at Northwestern University. Most recently last year, again, we did a topic on EDI and leadership. We always get around 100 members from across the state to participate in that. Next, please. Trustee training. So a few examples of this. We support not only the staff at our member libraries, but the trustees who serve the libraries in these communities. One of the ways we do this is our partnership with United for Libraries. We really helped inspire and kind of bring about the short takes for trustees that some of you may have experienced. These are a series of online sort of on-demand trainings that trustees can go through, especially during the onboarding process. That is free, and that's statewide access for trustees. We also schedule training for trustees at different times of year on different trustee topics, whether it's parliamentary procedure, FOIA, Open Meetings Act, et cetera. And as Dan mentioned previously, doing online roundtables, we collaborate on doing online roundtables for trustees. We have one coming up in a couple weeks that I hope some of you might be able to take advantage of as well. And of course, we occasionally attend board meetings to speak, to do a bit of training, providing guidance. At a library in a couple weeks down there, Patty, as I recall, to talk to trustees and support their onboarding. Next slide. And then the other, part of the other phrase in the title of the department is consulting, and that takes sort of different forms. We provide support through our consulting services, which is a combination of structured and sort of unstructured services. Some of the structured being our Freedom of Information Act and Open Meetings Act hotline, which allows the library to get free legal assistance with questions when they are faced with a FOIA request or they have questions related to the Open Meetings Act, because there are a lot of those questions that we receive. We've enjoyed a great partnership with HR Source, both from a training perspective and also our discount membership program, which is grown to about 70 libraries that take advantage of that and really get a lot of good HR guidance from the association. We, as we've said for a while, we're kind of a reference desk for libraries. Libraries reach out to us when they have questions about policies, best practices, procedures. And that's something that I think it kind of takes a village. We collaborate on and try to support them. Sometimes it's providing the answers they seek. Sometimes it's pointing them in the right direction of the resource they need. And sometimes it might be connecting them to another library or colleague that we know has some experience in the area that they're seeking. But sometimes it requires a more hands-on approach. And I'd say just about once a month, we get a call from a library that has a challenge, that is dealing with something difficult. And it's something that myself and Deirdre and Monica and others have to collaborate on and figure out what we as Rails can do to help support them. But that sort of one-on-one support is something that we value doing as well. And I think our members increasingly look to Rails when they don't know where else to turn for support. Okay, I think that is it. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions now or anytime. Yeah, Jennifer.
Is your training archive available to IHLS members as well, or just Rails?
Except for when our arrangement with a particular presenter might prevent us from doing that, where their contract says this is only available for Rails member. But by default, we know how important this is for all of our members that we share. And I would say probably 80 to 90% is available to Heartland. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Thank you.
Back over to you, Ann.
So L2 is a statewide library directory and continuing education calendar. It's at librarylearning.org. It's used by library staff throughout Illinois to find and register for continuing education events, and system and state library staff use it heavily internally as well to manage meeting room reservations as well as library data. There's a wealth of data about every system member library in Illinois in the directory piece. So Rails hosts and manages this and has since our formation. It started about 2-3 years before Rails was formed. So we took it over at that point. It's always been a statewide service. It was redeveloped last year with a new technical backend and a new design that makes it more sustainable and flexible from kind of the ongoing feature development and resource management perspective, and it's more user-friendly. That redevelopment was funded by the Illinois State Library, and we're actually currently in the process of applying for additional funding to help pay for our ongoing relationship with our vendor and all the staff time that goes into it. It is truly a cross-departmental project within Rails as well as the other systems. It kind of touches every unit of the organization. Our annual library certification was also conducted on L2 for the first time in this calendar year as part of our ongoing efforts to streamline the statewide data collection responsibilities that libraries have. And if you are not already on L2, I invite you to go create an account for yourself.
Yes, please do. If you're not on L2, we can help you today because it's a source of a lot of information, connectivity. As Ann said, we're using L2 to certify now, and certification has to be done by all system member libraries every year. With the advances in L2, we can now ask additional questions of libraries to get a better idea of what their situations are. And next year, we will be focusing on school libraries because, as you've heard from Monica, there's been, even pre-pandemic, there were issues with the accuracy of our information about school library staffing, budgeting, et cetera. But after the pandemic, since then, who knows? Next slide. Okay, so we're getting near the end, folks. So goal 4 is about preparing libraries for the future. And Monica's going to talk about a few things here.
So
So as many of you have experienced this year, the world is changing quickly, and we often have a need as Rails to be able to respond quickly to those changes on behalf of our member libraries and give us the best information that we possibly can. And one of our best tools that we have to do this are our library pulse pages. These exist kind of right at the very front of the Rails webpage. So if you go there, you can see there's a few tiles right at the top that are focused on some specific issues. So these are just a few. EDI, again, for equity, diversity, and inclusion. We have a COVID-19 pulse page, an e-content publisher and pricing issues, all about ebooks and e-content. And then our universal library service, which is chiefly concerned with the unserved. We also add issues that are affecting libraries of all types and sizes as they come up. So this is just one area where we can really pivot and add a lot of information. The first pulses to show up are the ones that have been updated most recently. So those will continue to change that order just based on what our members need and what's happening in those different service areas. Next, please. Of course, our equity, diversity, and inclusion efforts are very top of mind right now, and this is going to continue to be a major focus area for this coming fiscal year. Our Rails board does have a committee, which also includes 3 separate subcommittees that are focused on very specific areas of equity, diversity, and inclusion that they wanted to make sure that they're working on. So the large committee is divided up into those 3 areas to work on the subcommittees together, and each is focused specifically right now on a project that they're working on. Diane is our chair in that area, and we're moving forward in really great ways, and we are excited to continue to see what the group comes together with, along with the training and education that group is focused on. In addition, Rails is doing a lot of internal work that's led by Joe Philippak, and we have a team at Rails who are all focused on these issues and meet monthly to discuss them along with our consultant, Biz Lindsay Ryan. They've discussed a lot of issues that are happening at the Rails level and are continuing to work together both on projects and then at a more theoretical level about how we can help our members as Rails in cooperation with some of the larger efforts that are happening. Training for all Rails staff. We've had 2 full all staff trainings that are focused on equity, diversity, and inclusion in the last year that happened virtually, and we will continue to have another 2 that are focused on some of the most common issues that we get questions about or that our climate team has identified as being big issues for our staff. And we also, through Joe and Joe's team, have continued to offer continuing education for our Rails members on these topics. And this continues to be of huge interest to our members in making sure that they have as many topics as possible for as many library types and issues as possible that they can see identified, as well as a mailing list that was identified for members to share best practices around this. So a lot of work happening in the EDI venue. And then our last piece, again, is just addressing those issues that are related to the unserved. This continues to be a huge issue that, again, Rails has a responsibility to continue to focus on, but the answers here are not easy. And so these are some of the things that we're focused on currently. We are continuing to work towards the possibility of a statewide library card and looking for different venues or possibilities to make that happen. That Rails board of the Universal Service Committee, as well as the Pulse page, are great places to look for more information about what's happening right now, how to learn more. But it really is a complex and fascinating issue. One big new thing that happened in this last year was the Cards for Kids legislation that came through. The administrative rules regarding Cards for Kids, I think, are coming out today. And so we should see more and be able to share more about that from the Illinois State Library soon. But that should share a little bit more about how libraries are meant to administer the rules that are coming towards Cards for Kids so that unserved students under the age of 18 or 18 and under who are currently students can have access to these libraries through that legislation. And then making e-content available to anyone through the geolocation that's available through the Wheelboard collection. Always we're trying to address these issues.
We also heard from our members during the strategic planning process that they want us to lead. So we agree with them that is a responsibility of ours. And one of the ways we try to do that is trend spotting, and our podcast is that we try to do monthly. We started using Zoom during the pandemic, and it's working out pretty well. So hope you catch those sometimes, the Sparks podcast. And then goal 5, this is the last of the goals, and obviously in order to do all of the things we've been telling you about at the highest level of quality, we need to be the best library system, or try to be, always thinking about being how to be, and endeavoring to be the best library system in the country. So Mary is going to talk about some of the things we do first.
Yes, member communication is very important to us. We want to make sure that all of our members know about all the great services we offer. You'll see some of the different tools we have up there. Of course, our website. Our weekly e-news comes out on Wednesday, and all of you will automatically be subscribed to that. I hope you will read that every week because that helps you know what to talk to members about our services. We have regular member update sessions. We'll probably have one in September. During the pandemic, these were quite popular. We have as many as 800 people attending. It's basically a way to find out what's going on at Rails and for members to show or to talk about what's going on at their libraries. So board members are welcome to come to those as well. And then we also exhibit at library-related conferences. And unfortunately, for the past year and a half, those have pretty much been virtual conferences, but that's starting to change now. IO will be in person in November, so we're really looking forward to getting out and actually seeing our members in person. If you happen to be at the IO conference, please stop by our booth. It's a good way for you to engage with members as well.
So we like to be able to do some face-to-face meetings when we can with libraries, and we try to be strategic about that. With 1,300 member libraries and 27,000 square miles, it's a little difficult to meet face-to-face with everyone. But we do some strategic online visits. We focused mostly on schools and special libraries in the last couple of years. We also target people who are new directors. They're a great way to kind of get them acclimated to what life is like with the system, particularly people that come from out of state or are just becoming first-time library directors. All that stuff is really useful for them. I just had one of those meetings yesterday, actually. So we always encourage you to follow us on social media. If you do, you get a chance to see Deirdre and I do every other week. We do Rails Minute, which is just a conversation that we have about what's happening with Rails. We also would welcome your retweets and reshares. As part of your board advocacy, we would love it if you would help us amplify our voice on these channels. I know that's a little intimidating, but it does help show that you're invested in what we do. So thank you.
And then we have Grant Halter somewhere out there, I think, in the ether. He's our data analysis manager, and he's going to talk a little bit about data and evaluation.
Yes, hello. Can I get some call and response? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Great. Hello, everyone. I'm Grant Halter, Data Analysis Manager at Rails. Been here for about 2 years, and Rails has been doing a lot of great data work lately. Fostering a data culture is a big thing that's really incorporating more data use and data literacy across all programs, services, departments, and staff. And I can tell you just about everything you've heard in this orientation so far has been influenced and improved in some way with our data work over the last few years. We really focus on gathering and maintaining higher quality data. You'll see that a lot. We did a lot of work with the L2 data to standardize all of our libraries. The vendor deals and discounts has really kind of helped shape, using data has really helped shape how we kind of negotiate those programs. The delivery RFP has just been, it's live now, but we did a lot of work cleaning that data to make sure we were sharing the right things, but also we're building sustainable and more equitable formulas, most notably the LSAP support grant formula to distribute those funds, and also the Eread fee formula, so that we can help out our libraries as best we can with equitable fees. Also, I'm sure you've seen lots of our surveys going around. The reopening survey during the pandemic was a big one, and sharing that data through mostly Google Data Studio dashboards, so people are more familiar with data that Rails has, and we can send reports and just kind of share as much information as we can.
Thanks, Grant.
Yep.
So obviously very important to have a strong infrastructure in order to be a great system. That includes you all, a great board, knowledgeable, engaged, supported by staff. I think that we have a great staff. We want to be sure we keep a great staff, technology, infrastructure, and excellent stewardship of financial resources. So as far as the future, well, there's going to be a new strategic plan, and you all will be very involved in that, we hope. You'll be hearing more about that at the meeting this afternoon. Very important endeavor. I think that time is perfect for us to be doing this after the pandemic. I think obviously we know a lot changed, and so it's time to take a hard look at what it is that we do for members. That's it. Questions, comments, applause, no. Sighs of relief. I hope it wasn't too much. It's just, it's important to try to give you all, a baseline in this. You'll be hearing about all of these things and others in much greater detail over the year. So questions, comments? I think, we have until noon. We don't need that entire time. I think we'll take a good break. As I said, we do want to take a picture. Feel free to eat food, etc. But in the meantime, do you have questions now, or do you want to get up, walk around, think about it?
Thanks for inviting the
of
board
course.
members, the veteran board. I always learn something new. The first
Good.
time we had it, I was a little overwhelmed.
Right.
There was so much information, and we didn't have, well, we heard this on virtual last year, but this is great. Thank you for having it.
Of course. It's our pleasure.
And you're right, you have an excellent staff. You really do.
Yes.
Everyone I've ever reached out to has been more than helpful. So I thank you.
Well, I think everybody really believes in what we're doing. So
Yeah.
it's a great team.
So what, 15 minutes?
I think at least 15 minutes. And
Sure.
yeah, let's say we'll come back at 20 of 11. How's that?
Sounds good.
Feel free to walk around, ask questions, and then we'll reconvene and go through the packet. Okay. Welcome back. So we're going to take you through the folder here. Looks like this. And there's some over there. You need one?
Can I introduce?
Oh, gosh, yes, please. Here's our great admin team.
So this is our admin team. They will introduce themselves, but you will hear from them because we all work on different committees. And there's really nothing that happens in Rails that one of us doesn't touch in some way. So go ahead.
Jody Rubel. I work with the Consortium Committee, the new LSAP working group committee that we're having, and one of the subcommittees for EDI, the recruitment, hiring, and retention subcommittee.
I'm Jackie Palmisano, and I work with Hollister for the EDI, the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Committee, as well as the subcommittee of EDI, staff training, leadership, and advocacy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna Duff. I'm admin assistant for Research Sharing Committee and also Universal Service.
Hi, I'm Sharon Boyer, and I am the admin assistant for the Advocacy Committee and the EDI Program Services and Outreach Subcommittee.
That is by no means all that they do.
No, not at all.
Thanks, you guys.
All right, thank you.
There's a lot of staff here today, so we will walk around, later and introduce you all. In the folder, starting on the left-hand side, there is the board member job description. I want to start with that, if that's all right. So So this is just, reiterating what we talked a little bit about during the PowerPoint, but see the roster here, the makeup, but then, all board members represent the overall interests and needs of Rails member libraries. And, that's a big statement because as, there's a lot of diversity, a lot of, variety of size, budget, type of library, in Rails. So that's one of the main reasons that we want to, be sure you're all informed, that that we give you as much information as we can, that, we tell you about all of our services and, how they affect members. Going down to the duties and responsibilities, as I said, we generally have 11 board meetings a year. You'll hear more about the reimbursement and all that later from Emily. You've heard about the committees a little bit. We're going to talk about the committee assignments, et cetera, in the board meeting. The main thing, obviously, is your fiduciary responsibility, our, policies. We do have a policy committee that is that meets only when we have a policy to consider. We recently did have one related to vaccines, obviously, and may have another one soon. The other, on the back, there's some more information about, promoting, being this is all related to being ambassadors, opportunities to network, and then some other requirements about, an unexcused absence means, frankly, I'll tell you, this has never been a problem. We've never enforced anything like this, but we do really need to know, and we'll tell you this again later, we really need to know if you're, when and where, or, that you're coming to the board meeting and where you're going to be, because it's all about the quorum. And we'll talk about.
If I can add, an unexcused absence is, you don't
tell us.
No.
And
that you're not coming.
Right. So we need to know that. I mean, yeah. You have to live within the Rails region. You have to complete the Open Meeting Act training, except that you can't. So, we've said all this before. So, the next piece in the folder that I want to talk about is the engagement and communication survey results. And this relates a lot to the job description and also to what happens in the meetings. So we've done a lot of work on board engagement this year, and we're going to continue to do that. Because we need to hear back from you what's working in terms of how we interact, how we communicate, how we support you. So this survey we did you see it's March of 2021. It was very helpful, and we did make a number of changes related to that came from the survey. For example, we've started taking a break during the meeting because you need to get up and walk around. There was, on page 3, you'll see, board member suggestions. Take a break. Recap after agenda items come to a close. A summary of committee meetings in the board packet. I think that the admin team takes care of that with the committee chairs, and I think that's been helpful in shortening the meetings a little bit, perhaps, and making the committee reports more,
efficient.
Yeah, and just you have something there written. You don't have to just remember it, and everybody gets the same information. Having more networking opportunities, we sure hope so. We can do that. desire to have some member libraries report come to the meeting and talk about what's going on in their libraries, just to, interact more with members that way. Yeah, another really great idea was to have the state library talk at one of the meetings. We hadn't, there used to be meetings with the state library and the Heartland board, our board, Heartland and state library staff would get together. That hasn't happened in years. And so the suggestion that the state library present on their services, I thought was, I'm like, well, I should have thought of that. So they're going to do that in August. Greg McCormick is going to talk about, and I think that'll help to kind of fill out the picture too, because like your question about delivery, they fund it, we do it. There's other things like that, Jennifer. Let's see, and then other, some other great suggestions too about, how are the reports? I think in general, people felt that, the Rails reports were very useful, the financial reports, but we're always interested in feedback about these things. We want to make them as good as they can be. Let's see. You'll see as you read through this, you'll see some, other questions, or other suggestions about various topics and, need for more information about different services. So, please feel free to, to give us suggestions at any time. The other thing about the meetings our meetings that I want to talk about a little bit is that the, technology is wonderful, except when it isn't, right? And it can be difficult if you're participating remotely, a lot of the participation will, you won't always be in this room together. And it's hard if you're not in this room, frankly, to, sometimes to get the attention to be able to talk. So, I have pledged, and last year, Michael Campbell, our president, we really, worked on that. But you've got to just speak up if you want to participate in the meeting, and we will try to be as cognizant as we can as well when somebody wants to participate. It doesn't help that there's a little delay in the other sites. If you're in Coal Valley or East Peoria, everything's a little bit later. So by the time you figure out you want to talk, the people who are in Burr Ridge, which is where most of the meetings do take place, it's kind of moved on. So we try to work on that, but just so you know. So on the other hand, while that part is kind of hard, these microphones are very sensitive. So it picks up, paper rustling, whispering, moving things. It's just, so I'm just warning you all, kind of that while technology, brings us together and, helps us to participate together. There is some.
And just so when this is green, that's the microphone is on, and when we're in a meeting, it's always being recorded and live streamed. So everyone can.
I have a feeling last time in East Peoria, we forgot to mute it. So you probably heard every conversation we're having about Instagram.
Yes, it was fascinating.
Giving me Instagram things to look up. Sorry about that.
No, it's just like.
But I keep trying to mute this, but then it keeps coming back green.
You cannot.
Because
I cannot.
Okay. No, you did mute it, and I unmuted it.
Oh, okay.
All three are connected.
Got it.
So if
Okay.
you mute that, you're muting the whole meeting.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, but thank you.
Because I thought, well, maybe I should mute it because I was eating over here. And
Yeah, I totally get. See, it's a perfect example. It's just so. So, well, that explains it. And we thought there was some sort of weird rambling.
What are you doing? Because I was eating and I thought, I don't want
We
people
were
hearing
sitting
me
here
chewing.
like, all of a sudden, I didn't see anyone do it, so it was kind of like, it was always 5 or 6 minutes later.
As I kept seeing it come back green, I thought.
Gremlins in the,
Yeah, if we mute, the whole room mutes. It's not, all these microphones are connected.
Okay. I'll leave my hands off of it. Quiet too.
yeah, sure. Yeah.
From IT, sure. From policy.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know, I think the policy is if a board member is there, they have to stay in session. It should be unmuted, I believe.
Remember to unmute and come back. We forgot last month.
Yes.
Yes, that happens.
Yes. Right. So there are all the pitfalls. But, you know, we have, you know, IT and the administrative team who you just met they work very closely together on all these things. And we've learned a lot. Unfortunately, we still continue to learn a lot about Zoom. We just learned something the last meeting we had. Anyway, any questions about any of that? And just don't be shy about asking at any point, because the whole point is for people to be able to participate and discuss and have good conversations. And this is supposed to help, not hurt.
Are you going to be doing this survey again? Is this a yearly
I think we
survey?
probably will,
Yeah,
yes.
do it every year.
Yeah.
Kind of a follow-up.
Any other questions, comments, thought? Anything you want to say, Mary, about it, or?
No, I just really appreciate the
Yep.
feedback everybody gave on the survey. Really good comments. So
Yep.
thank you for your honest feedback. It was wonderful. Really helps us.
We don't want to write reports that you don't want to read.
Not at all.
So obviously that makes no sense.
One thing on the remote locations, if you're in a remote locations, it's really hard to get emotion. Yeah.
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 You know, because you're sitting there and go, do you or don't you? Do you or don't you? You know,
And then it's too late, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's why it's important to, you know, to move around too. But we'll see how it goes. So we should talk about the quorum thing now, I think. Do you want to talk about that, Emily, or do you want me to?
I can.
I'll start, and then you can fill in what I forget. So I mean, obviously, we have to have a quorum in order to have a legal meeting. Okay. For a library system, we don't have to have a quorum in a room like, I mean, today we do, that's fantastic. But we have a dispensation in the state laws that we can have a physical quorum that if board members are present in public buildings, where, in other words, in buildings where the public can also attend. So, for example, when Diane and Sue and Tom and Robin are in East Peoria, as they often are, because it's near to them, then they can be counted in the quorum, as can the people in this building or in Coal Valley, or any of our buildings, or a public library. If you can be in a public library or a college library, we did at one point. But it has to be posted that the meeting is at those locations and that the public can attend. So that's how we think it's going. That's how it worked before the pandemic. During the pandemic, you know, we got the rules requiring the physical quorum were relaxed so that we could have a quorum via Zoom. That's no longer the case. So if you attend in your office, as I know, you know, many of you, I mean, look at Jennifer, because I know for a while that's the only thing you could do, according to your college, who obviously that's what you have to follow. You would not be counted in the quorum unless the public could come in too, and the meeting was posted there.
So for instance, if Jennifer was in a public meeting room and the public had access to that, the agenda would be posted and it would be considered a room. So Jennifer would have to be in a conference room. Other people would be able to have to hear what the meeting was going on and everything else. Now, this has not been an issue, but we still have to go by the rules. We don't have a lot of public coming to our meetings. There's probably been, I don't know, 20 in the past 8 years that I've been here.
Right.
But we still have to follow the rules. And we do need, we probably need 3 days notice if that's going to be, you can't call up today and go, I can't attend the meeting. Can I attend? If we have a quorum, if we already have a quorum, that's fine. But we have to have at least 8 members physically in publicly noticed locations.
Okay.
And me, anyone on my team can help you through that. So.
Right.
So I would just have to post the Rails agenda at my library and be in my community room on Zoom.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think that's happening, but in case it did. Okay,
right.
Perfect.
Yeah, and there, there's a list in the folder, right, of the meeting, the Rails service centers that you can go to, and the other libraries that have, I don't know where it is right now. Where, do you know it?
Right now, it's Cherry Valley, Freeport Public Library, Kankakee Public Library, and Sterling Public Library.
Okay.
As well as Cole Valley and East Peoria. But they do need some setup time. We have to make sure that it's available, that they're not having anything else going on that day. So it's never a walk in and do it type of thing.
Right.
All of our service centers are more kind of pre-set up for that.
Yes.
Is the notice requirement 48 or 72 hours before the meeting takes place that the notice has to be posted?
48.
It's 48. But 48's cutting it way too close.
But legally,
Yes.
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 Legally, it's 48. So it would be 1 o'clock 2 days before.
Right.
But that's never going to give us enough time to do that.
That's a little scary.
Yeah.
I mean, and speaking of timing, generally you will get the packet a week before. It will be posted on the website just as it was this time. Sometimes that slips because of whatever, and you might get it Monday, but that's our practice. And I think it's a good one because it gives you and us plenty of time then to.
So you guys would provide us some assistance with getting the meeting notice and.
Absolutely.
If I were going to Cole Valley, just let you know, so you can check the.
Our service centers are not an issue. They're always expecting someone.
Okay.
So if you want to say you're attending in Cole Valley all the time, that's fine. Cole Valley and East Peoria, just assume that they're always open and expecting you. So, but if I send an email Friday, just let me know, by Monday where you're attending, so that I can just make sure that they know you're coming. Someone's there. It's not locked.
Right. Sometimes
there's not a whole lot of people at Cole Valley, as you know.
Right.
The quorum is a simple majority of the total board members.
Yes.
So it'd be like 8.
8. Let's see. What else did I want to tell you?
And again, if you ever have any questions about it, just let me know.
Are we held to that same standard for committee meetings as well?
Yes.
Okay.
So committee meetings will not be by Zoom anymore?
They can be by Zoom, but you have to be.
I can't be at my house.
Right. Unless you want to.
You can be at your house. You can't be. You're not counted in the quorum though.
Okay.
So if there's 5, 3 people have to be at a publicly noticed location.
Yeah.
I can't put an agenda on my front door.
You open your house and now it becomes a public building.
Your neighbors can pop in.
Unannounced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would
I'm gonna have
recommend
to
against that.
Figure this out.
It's been a lot for us to get used to too. It was like, wait a minute, how did we used to do this? It was.
Thanks for been at my house on Universal.
Don't you think question, so like if I'm on a committee or I would be on a committee, if my committee meets and I'm not able to go to the location they're at, I could go to East Peoria.
Yes.
And still be counted as.
Absolutely.
That.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's often the case with the committees.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those are probably the scariest for quorums too, the committees.
Yes, oh, they are.
What did you say?
It's probably the scariest for getting a quorum in some of the committees.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yes, it is. It's nail biting sometimes.
Just a follow-up, if there is no quorum, meeting is canceled? Is that what happens? We just don't know because it hasn't happened.
That, I don't think it's ever actually happened, but we've gotten close.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to reiterate, East Peoria is still not open, right?
We'll see in August.
Yeah, it's
I will let you all
still
know.
getting things work right, as far as you know, Ryan?
We tested and they were attractive.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know if they have tables and chairs.
yeah.
I'll do an update in a
That's
couple
right, you
weeks.
did. Okay. All right, Tom just reminded me that he did the consortium committee from there. We'll let you know. I imagine by August they'll be. Okay. Emily, you want to talk about the form?
Sure.
Travel reimbursement?
In your folder, you have the travel reimbursement form. This is a paper copy. It would be really convenient if you did not use the paper copy. It is a fillable form. It should be very easy to use. It is pre-populated with the up-to-date state mileage reimbursement. And you just send that, you fill it out, send it to me via email, and I send it to finance, and then you'll get a check in the mail. And you can do that every month if you travel. You can do it every 3 months, but every 2 to 3 months is preferred. And that's travel to and from any meeting involved with Rails.
All right, I think we covered participation and contribution. We do create annotated agendas for me and the board chair, committee chairs. Talked about video conference locations and the sensitive microphones. A little bit about why you need a separate account, and that Ryan can help you with that.
Well, so you all have your Rails email address. All correspondence from anyone at Rails should come from that. And all email exchanges related to board are subject to FOIA requests. So that means if we get a FOIA request and they want emails from all of you, our excellent IT department takes care of that. You don't have to do anything except we'll just tell you that it's being FOIA'd. Now, if you use another email address for a board business, that can be FOIA'd too. So you do not want to do that. You also do not want to put anything in an email that you don't want other people to see. That's for
just on
everything.
general principle.
General principle. So you do not want your private email FOIA'd. And that, because that would mean you have to go through all your emails and give everything with your information to us. Also, if you do a reply all to an email, it will not go through. I will get a notice saying, I'm going to use you, Diane. Diane sent an email to everyone. Are you going to allow it? And I will say, no, I will not allow it. So if you would like something to go to all the board members, you can ask Deirdre, me, any of my admin team, can you send this information out or ask this question or however you want to do it.
That's just to protect you all again from.
Just a safety measure.
Yeah. Questions about any of that? Yes.
I have one that's tangential to this.
Sure.
But in my email account from Rails, do I need to report odd emails?
Yes. To me or Emily. Yeah.
I've been getting mail from Omnographics constantly.
From who?
on the graphics.
I've gotten that too, but I haven't opened it.
Oh, I haven't opened it, but
Just forward it.
Yeah. Because then IT will block those specific email addresses. I mean, they block thousands a day, I think, but there's always some that slip through. And by the way, nobody will ever ask you to do a favor for them.
Yeah.
Or buy a gift card or anything like that. That will never happen.
Somebody just got that.
Yeah, the board actually, some of the board just recently had a phishing scam.
Yes.
Basically, asked them to do a favor.
I think it was Sue. Sue was asking for a favor.
I was?
Yes.
It was a phishing scam.
Wasn't.
So someone's pretending to be you.
It says
Very discreet
Susan
favor.
Busenbark, but it has the email addresses incorrect.
Clearly.
And it says something
made up.
like, "Hi, I was wondering if you could do me a favor. Can you contact me on my cell phone?"
And I'll be very discreet.
Yes.
So do I need to do something?
No.
Okay. No, we took
So
care of that.
also, if an email comes to you from someone outside of our organization, it'll have a bright red bar across the top saying this is an external email.
Yes, I get those.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing, but if you see that red bar and it says it's a Rails employee, it's a lie.
Everything should have railslibraries.info.
So had I done something to?
No.
You did not. No.
Someone was just pretending to be you, and they emailed like 8 or 9 people on the board directly.
Wow.
So we've since blocked that email address.
But something like that happens every couple of months or so.
Oh, yeah.
And
Do you want us to notify you then, or like forward it to you?
Emily D.
yeah, you can just forward it to me, and then I'll make sure IT. Yeah.
I took
I
it when
think
I saw that
Jenna
one actually, because they would do that to
messaged me
my
directly,
director.
Oh yeah.
And
Well,
he keep-
I mean,
I found out.
Can
yeah.
you do me a favor? No.
No. No. Dee's not asking you to buy a gift card.
I know. It's weird.
Now, another thing that we started doing a couple of years ago, the board started doing, based on a similar survey to this, was buddies, board buddies. Not everybody did it, but in other words, new board members had a more experienced board member as a mentor, as somebody they could call up and ask questions about. So that we can facilitate that, or you can just identify that Tom is everybody's favorite mentor. Sorry. Somebody in your area, somebody who, I mean, obviously, Robin, you've got a couple people down there. There's a lot of people near you, Alice and Karen as well. Actually, Paul Mills could probably tell you everything that you need to know.
Probably already has.
Yeah, Paul
In
is
your
good. I
area,
know
yeah,
Paul,
yeah. So
okay.
I'm kidding, he's not on the board, but
Yeah, he's a good guy.
so, feel
If I-
free. Yes, go
If I
ahead.
could say something back to the email thing.
Yep.
Doodle polls, answer them as quickly as
Yes,
possible.
thank you.
Because
Yep.
it's really, I know they have trouble trying to get a quorum
Yes.
on the things, so.
Yes. We have, some of our committees have 2 or 3 staff people on them. So we start with the committee chair and say, what are your available dates, and staff involved in that. And then we send a doodle poll to the committee and say, and what will work. And if those take long, sometimes other meetings pop up that those available dates are not available anymore. So then we have to do another doodle poll. And so it gets.
Speaking of committees, are we assigned to a committee or do?
We're going to talk about that too.
Okay.
But we can certainly talk about it now.
We're going to talk about that at the full board meeting.
Okay.
Because obviously there's,
Not everyone's here.
yeah, not
Okay.
everyone's here right now, but no, you're not assigned.
Okay.
Some people, it's, some things are sort of by virtue of office. The vice president is the chair of the policy committee.
Okay.
But let's see. We talked about the mentors. Yep. Thank you for reminding me about that. I think that's about it. That's all I can really think of right now. Does anybody have anything they want to add? Anybody? all there's a lot of other stuff in your packet, including on the right side, the current strategic plan, the bylaws, the administrative rules, and the copy of the System Act for your reading pleasure, and our policy on meetings via electronic means. And the conflict of interest form is in there too, if you haven't submitted that. And on the left side are the various committee charges for you to decide what interests you. And our most recent per capita grant, the operational plan. So you can move to that. So. Kind of it, I think. I think we should wait for the picture until,
We have to wait till the rest of the boards.
Yeah.
So we'll either do that after lunch
Or before if everybody's here.
Sure.
Other questions about anything?
Yeah, all these forms, we have to sign. Do you want them signed in front of somebody or just sign them and give them back to you? Or,
And if you want a copy, that's fine too.
Sure.
We're going to have lunch at 12, I think, thereabouts, right? So we can walk around if you want.
We need to adjourn.
What?
We need to adjourn.
True.
If we're done.
Are we done?
Oh.
Is there anything you want to say, Tom?
No, I'm just thank everyone for coming to the orientation. There's so much stuff going on here. Every time you come to orientation, like Diane said, you're going to always learn something new. So with that, we'll adjourn this meeting and see everybody at the next meeting.